The chain fell with a dull, dusty sound, sinking into the sand like a dead snake, and for a moment neither of them moved. Dawn crept over the horizon in slow fire, red, then gold, spilling light across the plains and revealing what the darkness had hidden. The woman straightened her back, rolling her shoulders as if testing the sky itself, and when she spoke again, her voice was steady, unbroken, older than pain. "Remember this sunrise, Cowboy," she said. "It is the hour when lies die." He met her eyes then, really met them, and saw not gratitude but something far more dangerous, freedom. Around them the camp stirred, horses snorted, canvas tents whispered in the morning wind, and somewhere a man laughed, unaware that the world had shifted. The cowboy felt it in his chest, a tightening he couldn't name. He had cut chains before, on gates, on prisoners, on himself, but never had a single act felt like stepping across a line that could never be uncrossed. She took one step away from the post, then another, bare feet pressing into the cold earth as if reclaiming it. Each step seemed to erase the marks the rope had left on her wrists. He wanted to speak, to explain why he had come back when he could have ridden away before dawn. But the words tangled in his throat. He had seen her the night before, bound and silent after the raid had scattered her people and left smoke hanging over the valley like a curse. Something in her eyes then, defiance without fear, had followed him into sleep, gnawed at him, dragged him back here while the stars were still watching. Now she turned toward the open land, toward the low hills where the light touched first, and he realized she was listening to something he could not hear. "You should go," he said at last, the sentence too small for the moment. "Before they wake." She smiled, not kindly, not cruelly, but as one might smile at a child who has just discovered fire. "They are already awake," she replied. "They always are." As if summoned by her words, a shout rose from the far end of the camp. Another followed, sharper, edged with confusion. The cowboy's hand drifted to his revolver by instinct, but she shook her head once. "No more chains," she said softly. "Not of iron, not of blood." She stepped past him, close enough that he caught the scent of smoke and sage in her hair, and for a heartbeat the world narrowed to that passing, to the knowledge that if he reached out he could stop her, and that if he did, he would become exactly what she had named. Voices grew louder. Boots struck the ground. "Someone cursed!" The cowboy turned, scanning for an escape, already calculating angles and distances. But when he looked back, she was no longer walking. She was running, her stride long and sure, moving not away from danger, but into the land itself, as if the plains were opening to receive her. A shot cracked the air, then another, bullets whining uselessly against the morning. She did not stumble. She did not look back. She vanished into a fold of earth just as riders burst from between the tents, rifles raised, fury blazing in their eyes. "You!" one of them shouted, recognizing the cowboy. "What did you do?" The cowboy stood still, hands empty, heart hammering, and answered with the only truth he had left. "I said something right." They rushed past him, chasing shadows, leaving him alone amid the torn ropes and trampled sand. The sun climbed higher, indifferent. In the distance, a single cry echoed, wild, fierce, triumphant, and it raised the hair on his arms. He knew that sound would follow him for the rest of his days, that no amount of riding or fighting or drinking would drown it out. Some moments did that. They carved a mark deeper than any brand. And as he mounted his horse and turned away from the camp, he understood that this was not the end of her story, nor of his. It was a beginning, written in fire and choice, the kind of beginning that demands a price. If this story already has you hooked, if you feel the dust, the danger, the freedom rising with the sun, then don't ride away yet. Subscribe to the channel and stay with us, because the next chapter will reveal who she truly is, what the land remembers, and why, cutting those chains may have started a war. Neither of them can escape. The second night after dawn broke the chains. The land itself seemed to whisper her name. She moved like a shadow stitched to the hills, never rushing, never hesitating, guided by memory older than maps. Each step carried her farther from the camp and closer to what had been stolen. The cowboy rode hard in the opposite direction, Yet every mile felt wrong, like riding against the pull of the stars. He told himself he was done, that a single act of mercy did not bind a man forever. But the truth followed him like a ghost. Freedom once witnessed cannot be unseen. When the moon rose, full and watchful, he turned his horse without another lie and followed the tracks. She had not bothered to hide. They met again where the river narrowed, water sliding over stones with a sound like quiet laughter. She stood on the far bank, firelight catching the sharp lines of her face. No longer a captive, but a warrior revealed. "I knew you would come," she said. Not surprised, not pleased, simply certain. He dismounted slowly, hands away from his gun. "I didn't come to take," he said. "I came because leaving felt like another kind of chain." She studied him for a long moment, eyes reflecting flame and history, then nodded once. "Then listen," she replied. "Because this land listens too." She told him of her people scattered, of promises broken like dry branches, of blood spilled for paper words. She told him her name, a name that meant storm after drought, and as she spoke, the river seemed to lean closer. At dawn, not the same dawn, but one heavy with fate, they were surrounded. Riders crested the hills, rifles dark against the sky. The cowboy felt the old fear rise, the familiar calculation of survival, but she placed a hand on his arm, steady as stone. "This is where men decide who they are," she said. Shots rang out, the valley exploding into chaos. He fought not for gold or orders, but for space. Space for her to move, to call, to vanish like smoke among the rocks. And when the dust settled, when the riders pulled back in confusion and fear of the land itself, she stood untouched, eyes blazing. "No man owns me," she said again. Louder now, for the hills, for the river, for every soul who had forgotten. "And no fear rules me." She did not stay. Freedom, once claimed, does not linger. She disappeared into the high country, leaving behind a silence thicker than gun smoke. The cowboy watched until the land closed over her path, then turned his face to the rising sun, changed beyond undoing. Some stories do not end with possession or peace. They end with awakening. And if you felt that awakening too, if this chapter stirred something wild and unbroken inside you, subscribe to the channel. Stay with us, because stories like this are not just told. They are remembered, and the next one is already riding toward you.